Oh, Subnautica, the peaceful underwater survival game with plenty of cute little fishes and crevices to explore where everything is calming and nothing ever goes wrong. Honestly, if you open up the game, play for about 20-30 minutes, stay in the safe shallows, and just kind of mess around collecting materials, maybe build yourself a little base, that's probably pretty much the experience you would get from it. But if you do anything more than that, you will probably understand that that's not how this game is at all. And believe me, pretty soon you're going to understand exactly why I'm saying that. Because we're going to 100% complete the game, and we're going to see everything that Subnautica has to offer. If you've never seen one of these videos, I'll give you a quick rundown of what I do here. This is a series called The 100, where I plan on 100% completing 100 different games over the course of however long that's going to take me, probably quite a while, judging by the rate that I'm going at right now, and I give them a score from 0 to 100, hence the name The 100. To get started here, we are going to have to lay out a few completion requirements. Subnautica is the 6th game in this series, and in terms of completion requirements, it's actually pretty lackluster. We really only have 2 official completion requirements that we're going to have to complete, which is to finish the main story and get all the Steam achievements. But I decided I would add a couple little incentives kind of throughout the way, just at least to keep it interesting. The first one is that I'm going to try and put as many of the little collectible fish in fish tanks as I can. I'd like to get all of them. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I'm not going to necessarily be too strict with it. And same thing with creature eggs. I'm going to try and collect as many of them as I can, put them in the alien containment. I think that'll be fun, but it's not necessarily going to be strict. I just would like to add it because there's not all that much to completing Subnautica necessarily, but I really wanted to play it, so it is what it is. Of course, the first thing that we're going to do once we, put out the fire and the life pods so we don't die, is we're going to dive into the water and take a look at our surroundings, which of course comes with our first achievement. That achievement being getting your feet wet, of course, for diving into the water for the very first time. Our main priority at this point is, of course, to get some food, try and get some water, and some basic materials. Naturally, while doing so, I almost die pretty much immediately. But the reason we're doing this is because if we're going to survive in this water-filled world, we're going to need an oxygen tank. We're also going to need a couple of other basic tools that are going to help us progress to get more advanced tools. Those things being the knife, the scanner, and fins just for convenience purposes. Now, at this point, I'm basically just going around looking for blueprints to scan. I have played Subnautica before, so I know enough about it to kind of generally have an idea of what I need to do in the early game, and at this point, we need a sea glide. While looking for blueprints, I did find enough materials to make a repair tool, so we can go ahead and make that so we can repair our pod. Now that the pod is all repaired, things will be a little bit more livable in here from now on. With the radio back up and running, we get a distress signal sent to our radio that we're going to have to check out pretty soon, but maybe not quite yet. For now, we were going to go look for some more blueprints. Luckily, we got the grav trap, which, thank God, because I was going to use the grav trap all of 0 times throughout this video, so it's a good thing we got that. But we also got some parts for the laser cutter, and eventually we got the mobile vehicle bay, and luckily, finally, after all that time, we finally actually found our last sea glide fragment, which feels like it took an embarrassingly long time, but we got it. Of course, we went back to the life pod right away, got all the materials we needed, and crafted ourselves a sea glide, as well as a high-capacity O2 tank while we were there. At this point, we're going to have to jump ahead to our next achievement, because if we keep going at this rate, it's going to take us something like 3.5 hours to get through the rest of this video, and I don't want that. Our next achievement is going to come in the form of personal propulsion. For building a Seamoth, we went ahead and we went to a couple of those coordinates that we got sent over our radio. We found some Seamoth blueprints, and this is going to open up the door for a lot more progression a lot more quickly. Of course, now that we have our Seamoth, the first thing that we do is drive around aimlessly for like 15 minutes. But the first thing of significance that we do is we go to a couple more of the abandoned life pods and find some good blueprints that we're going to need later on. Now that we've got a Seamoth, some good blueprints, some decent materials, we're running out of space in our little life pod, so naturally the next thing that we should do is probably start to make a base. I said that making a base was what we should do, not what we're going to do, because obviously my little ADHD brain can't handle focusing on one task for more than like 5 minutes at a time. Why do you think there was an 8-month long span in between 2 of my videos? I mean, come on. Basically, I got sidetracked, I ended up on this island, but we found some crops and some blueprints, and we're going to be back here way later anyways, because I missed the achievement that you need to get from this island, so it's whatever, we'll talk about it later. It kind of did work out though, because one of the major blueprints that we actually need for like serious base building was on this island, so, you know, it all works out in the end. Of course, that means we are going to actually start building our base now, and I guess I thought this random little cliffside was the perfect spot. I did know that I kind of wanted it to be in a little bit deeper of water, but honestly, if I could do it again, I probably would have put it somewhere else. Regardless of shoulda, woulda, coulda, this is where I decided to build my base, so we're stuck with it now. I started off with a multi-purpose room, which also brings our next achievement, setting in for the long haul for building a habitat. Now, all we had to do was slap a solar panel on that bad boy, and we were good to go. I spent quite a while just working on my base, transferring everything over to my life pod, adding rooms as needed, lockers, that kind of thing. But eventually we did get a transmission saying that from another ship, they're going to come to a location on the planet, they're going to pick us up, and we can get ourselves the hell off this rock. Eventually we do go to the rendezvous point that they gave us, and it's another island, of course, a lot bigger than the last one though, and this one seems to have some kind of huge alien building on it. While waiting for the timer to go off, I kind of made my way around the island, checked some things out, gathered a little bit of resources. I eventually found this thing called an alien arch, which I checked out, scanned, kind of looked at it for a little while, but then we waited patiently for the timer to go off. Once the timer eventually did go off, you could say it went off with a bang, because once the timer ran out and the ship came down to save me, this is what happened.
Gunfire. Hold on. No turning back now. Positions, everyone. Touching down in 10, 9, 8. It's coming from the building? Change course. Set thrusters to full.
I feel like it's pretty safe to say it's not going to be that easy to get off this planet, but with that being said, we're definitely going to have to go check out that building. Eventually, in our wandering, we find a control room and a control panel which we press. It sends out this little spike, it stabs us and tells us that we cannot shut off the giant alien gun because we are infected. But, on the bright side, we also did get our next achievement, Ancient Technologies, for finding the enforcement platform. We'll skip ahead a little bit to our next achievement, which is going to be Follow the Degassi, for finding the Degassi habitat in the Jelly Shroom Caves. I pretty much found this through hapless wandering. I had the transmission coordinates active that sends you here, but when I actually found it, I wasn't even trying to follow them. I just kind of ended up here, and then, you know, I got the achievement. Next up, we're going to actually take a pretty large time jump. I spent a whole lot of time gathering resources and blueprints so that we could get our next achievement, which is going to be 40-foot sub for 1. We finally got the Cyclops built, and like I said with the Seamoth, having the Cyclops is going to open up a whole slew of possibilities for the things that we can do now. Now that we've got the Cyclops and we don't have to worry quite so much about giant monsters from the ocean killing us, I think it's time that we head over to the Aurora and repair the drive core. Of course, this is going to be easier said than done when I actually made my way over to the Aurora. Not only did I realize that it was like barely deep enough for the Cyclops in some spots, but I also started on the wrong side of the Aurora, so it took me like literally 30 minutes to find the entrance. On my way to finding the entrance, I pretty much had to do a loop around the entire ship. While doing so, I was also shitting my pants, because this was happening the whole time. The footage honestly really doesn't do it justice, but basically the whole screen was shaking like the whole time, and I could be wrong, but I'm like pretty 99% sure that there was a Reaper Leviathan like just out of sight of me like at all times. I did eventually end up coming up on the entrance completely unharmed, so I guess my fear was completely unwarranted, whatever, womp womp. Now that we're actually on the Aurora, we can make our way through it diligently to make sure that we don't miss anything. While we're in here, we grab the blueprints for the prawn suit. That's going to be awesome. I'll save you from another one of the, oh, this is going to open up so many possibilities for us spiels, because, you know, you get the point by now. We also repair the, what's it called? We repair the Aurora reactor, which nets us our next achievement, Extinction Event Avoided. So there we go. 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, the next logical step would be to head back to my base, collect some materials, and build a prawn suit so that we can progress some more. But what have we learned about next logical steps? I don't do them. I'm just kidding. I went back to my base and I made a prawn suit. With our new prawn suit in tow, we can now open up the possibility for so much new improvement. Whatever. We got our next achievement, ordered the prawn, so we can check that one off the list. Now, at this point, we're officially in the territory of I've never done this before. Like I said earlier, I've played Subnautica before, but I've never gotten to the point of repairing the Aurora reactor core or getting the prawn suit or ever even going in the Aurora in the first place, for that matter. So everything up to this point I've kind of experienced, but at this point going forward, I haven't done any of this before, and some of it kind of takes me a little bit longer than it should. The next thing that I had to do was to go down to the Lost River with my prawn suit and find the disease research facility. And this went so badly. I had almost zero expectations going into this. I figured I would probably die to some kind of leviathan or creature I had never seen or just some threat that I didn't know about. But like most things in most games, it ended up being my own stupidity that ended up killing me and screwing me for like several hours. Really quick, I would just like to call out the masterful sound design in this game. I just want you to listen to how terrifying this area sounds for a second. The whole time you're in this area, whether something is actually trying to kill you or not, there's always something making noise that makes you feel like there is. I also would just like to point out that while I was in this area, I grabbed a cuttlefish egg because that is going to be important for an achievement later. Now, I did eventually find the disease research facility, and after making my way through, I learned some more information about the infection that I supposedly had, and we got the achievement for following the Lost River for finding the disease research facility. However, that really wasn't the problem. Like I said, the problem was my own stupidity. The stupidity in question had a lot to do with the fact that on this journey that I decided to go on, I didn't bring any food or water. Food was okay because I had a thermal knife and there were fish down here, so I could just kill them and eat them. But water was kind of a different story. So at this point, it was pretty much a race between me and my water bar. If I could get back to my Cyclops in time, there was water on the Cyclops, and if I could get there before I died, then I could drink some and I would be okay. But, you know how this goes. I didn't, so I died. And now my prawn suit was stuck in the Lost River. For whatever reason, right after I died, I kind of was totally unbothered by the fact that I could just completely, possibly lost my prawn suit forever. And I guess I just headed towards it to where I thought I could find it. While I was over here, completely not finding my prawn suit, it kind of led to my first encounter with a Reaper Leviathan. Because I had a stasis rifle on me, I decided that it would be only fair to stun the thing and get a scan on it. To say that this encounter could have ended my life would be like the understatement of the year. And because it didn't, it filled me with such confidence that I decided that it would be a good idea to try and kill every Reaper in the game because I had just found out that they don't respawn apparently. I did not do this because I realized it was going to take like 30 minutes to kill them with my knife, but you'll see that later. Unfortunately for me at this point, it kind of led to nothing else for the rest of the game really being scary because after an encounter like that, I felt pretty much invincible because I was able to outsmart the Reaper by kind of just going side to side. After another like 30 minutes of looking, I guess I just decided that I was never getting my prawn suit back and pretty much just gave up on it. I went back to the island because I realized that I missed the achievement and I was going to look for the PDA that I missed to actually activate the achievement, which eventually I did find, activating Seaside Living with an Ocean View for our next achievement for finding the Degassi habitat on the floating island. I then decided that if I actually wanted to really progress, I should probably go and get my prawn suit sooner than later, especially because there's always the chance that something down here could just destroy it. While I was down here, I decided to set up a scanner room with a thermal plant attached to it to use the heat to generate power for it so that I could scan for resources and find the resources that I needed down here much more easily, which I thought was pretty smart. You know what else I thought was pretty smart? You remember a couple minutes ago when I said I was going to try and kill every Leviathan and that didn't work out because it took way too long? Well, this is when I tried it. I used the stasis rifle on a ghost leviathan, and I hit it literally until my oxygen was basically completely out, and I finally killed it. But that was absolutely not worth it. And if that wasn't enough, I tried again with another one. And when I finally killed this one, I turned around to look for my Seamoth. And you know what I didn't find? I did not find my Seamoth because it got destroyed while I was killing the freaking Leviathan. So needless to say, I ran out of oxygen and I died. So that was the end of that. Luckily enough for me, I had just built that scanner room down here. You probably didn't think that was going to be significant, did you? But it is. Luckily for me, the game resets you when you die in the last base that you were in, and so it respawned me here. And so now all I had to do was make it from that little scanner room to my prawn suit, and if I could do that, we hopefully would be in the clear. Needless to say, at this point, with the prawn suit being about 1,600 meters away, my hopes were not high. But luckily enough, we did make it just barely in time, and we made our way back to our base with the prawn suit, and I guess it's time to build a new Seamoth. So now, with our Seamoth built, the hopes of killing all the Leviathans swiftly crushed, and our next achievement on the horizon, we headed out to the Deep Grand Reef to try and find it. Without too much issue, we find our next achievement, Sea Monsters, for finding the Degassi habitat in the Deep Grand Reef. This is a pretty cool biome, to be honest. It's one that you never really visit for anything really necessary to the game, honestly, but I wish it was utilized more because I think it looks really cool. I returned to my base after gathering resources for a little while, and I realized that the cuttlefish egg that I had put in my creature containment earlier had hatched, so I guess it was time now to take him out, release him, and get our next achievement, Man's Best Friend, for taming a cuttlefish, or not taming, but hatching and releasing a cuttlefish into the wild. It's kind of funny, this is the only real missable achievement in the game. Even though technically there are actually quite a few missable achievements, this is the only one in the game, as far as I could really tell, that isn't central to the story or anything. It was kind of weird. At this point, the next thing we could do to progress was to take our prawn suit and our Cyclops down to the Lost River and find the thermal plant. For some reason, I decided to take the entire Cyclops down with me, and if that's not good enough, for some reason I also decided that I was going to kill another Leviathan. I thought that I was done with this crap. I don't know what the hell I was doing this for. This is completely ridiculous. I don't know why I did this, or I have no idea. After grinding materials for kind of a ludicrously long time to hopefully secure myself for basically the rest of the game, we make our way down to this blue area of the Lost River, and we just keep on descending to make it down to the thermal plant eventually. Actually making it down to the thermal plant, though, might be easier said than done. We were going to have to contend with the Sea Dragon Leviathans, which is this thing, and that's probably going to make our path to the thermal plant kind of difficult to get to. Which is what I thought, until I just kind of walked past everything and nothing bothered me and I went right in. Upon actually finding the thermal plant, I kind of did a circle around it 4 times until I actually found the entrance. Once in the thermal plant, we mine some rocks and we get this crazy vision of this bug thing telling us to go to it. More importantly though, especially because we will be needing to come back here, we activated this portal that leads back to the original alien gun building, so it's going to make access to the thermal plant a whole lot easier. I did end up going back to my base for a little while to grind materials and just kind of get started on the next progression of the game. We are going to need to build this big rocket to actually get off this planet, so I kind of started gathering some materials and getting started on building that so that by the time I have everything else that I need to do done, I don't just have to sit around and get materials for hours so that I can actually finish the game. Eventually, after working on the rocket for a little while, we gathered all the things that we needed, jumped in our Cyclops, and headed back to the alien gun building so that we could head back to the thermal plant and hopefully basically finish progressing the story, at least as far as we can right now. From there, we jump in our prawn suit and through the portal back down into the thermal plant. While we're there, we go down and open up the one door that we couldn't open while we were there the first time because we just didn't have the right materials at the time. While we're in there, we grab 2 blueprints. These blueprints are going to be power sources so that we can power the rocket that we need to actually make it off the planet. I had a feeling that after that we were probably pretty close to the end of the game, so I went home and I tried to finish the Neptune rocket, which I was able to do, and once the rocket was actually finished, I decided to paint it red and blue because, I don't know, I just thought that looked cool and I figured it would be a shame not to paint it. After that, we head back to the alien gun building, hopefully for the last time, so that we can get everything that we need situated and make our way into the endgame, but my sub is driving kind of weird. Oh, well, that's probably why. Well, I am happy to report that people really can change. Now, instead of attacking me, the Reaper Leviathans just decide to push the back of my sub to slightly inconvenience me while I'm driving. Upon returning to the thermal plant, we are going to have to venture even farther down into the lava zone, to an area called the Lava Lakes, because here we need to find the primary containment facility. Once we do, we will put these 2 blue tablets into their allotted sections, and we will unlock our achievement, 14,000 Leagues Under the Sea, for finding the primary containment facility. This is officially the major spoiler warning. From this point on, there is going to be huge spoilers for basically everything that's integral to the plot of the game. If you don't want that, I would encourage that you do play the game and experience the story firsthand. It is quite interesting. But at this point you can skip to the timestamp, which will bring you to the ranking portion of the video, and you can see how I ranked it, reviewed it, and how I felt about it after being completed. If you're watching this, it means you've either already played Subnautica, or you're okay with getting spoiled. So, next we jump down onto this platform, and we are greeted by this big, huge, giant, like, alien Leviathan thing. Basically, it's asking us if we're here to help or hurt. Essentially, she explains to us that if we help her do something that she desperately needs to do, she will help us in any way she can cure our infection and get off this planet. She essentially explains that the thing that she needs help with is to get her babies to actually be able to hatch. And what she needs in order to do that is a special enzyme that we can create basically in a lab to activate the hatching process. And with that, she opens up another portal that heads back to the alien gun room, as well as 4 other portals that are in the main room that we can use to find the materials that we need to make the substance to hatch the babies. That might be the weirdest sentence I've ever said in my life, but regardless, we go through all the portals, collect the ingredients we need to create the enzyme, and we head back to the eggs to get them hatched. With enzyme in hand, we make our way back to the containment facility, put it in the little terminal, and we watch as all of the baby leviathans start to hatch and swim around freely. All the little baby leviathans end up swimming through the portal, and I guess that means that we're probably going to have to follow them through. But not before Mama Leviathan thanks us for helping her. After following these baby leviathans through the portal, we see this goo stuff that they've emitted, which we put our hand in and it kind of sticks to us and maybe freaks us out a little bit for a second, but eventually we realized that it actually cured us from the disease that we had. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but I guess it did work as the Mother Leviathan promised. And with that, we get our next achievement, Optimal Health, for curing the infection. Now the final ball is rolling to complete the game. At this point, because we are not infected anymore, we can go back into the giant alien gun building, hit that little terminal button, and it'll let us deactivate the huge alien gun. And now that the huge alien gun is deactivated, that means that we can hopefully hop into our spaceship and get the hell out of here. I set off back for the base, and before we take off in our rocket, I felt it was appropriate to take a look at our alien containment, see all of the eggs that we've gathered. I know I didn't get all of them, but these were the creatures that I managed to get in the alien containment. And I wanted to take a quick peek at the fish tanks that we had. I was pleased to find out that we did actually manage to collect every single fish that you can put in a fish tank, which also just so happens to be all of the edible fish. But we got all of them, which I thought was kind of cool. At this point, it was actually time to go up and get in the rocket. I was kind of just admiring the beauty of the world that I had survived in for so long and the world that I had grown to love. Once inside the rocket, I pretty much immediately got started working on a time capsule because that was going to be important for our very last achievement. I went outside, took one last good look at the world before heading inside to activate the rocket. With the last few systems coming online, we were just about ready to sit down in our rocket, take off, and head for home, wherever home might be. With everything active and ready to go, we sit down in our chair, activate all of the systems that need to be activated, and we sit and wait for a successful launch. With the launch of the Neptune rocket, we also pop our last 2 achievements. Go among the stars and leave only time capsules. For launching the Neptune rocket and dropping a time capsule. And with that, we've 100% completed Subnautica. We've finished the main story, we've completed all the achievements, we got all the fish tank fish, which obviously we didn't have to do, and we collected a whole bunch of creature eggs. I'm super happy with how it went, and even though sometimes it kind of felt like it was dragging, it went by in an instant. Subnautica truly is a unique game, and it's a game that I think everybody should experience at least once in their life. Even if you don't complete it or even finish the story, it's a great experience, especially as a new player coming in blind. But without further ado, you know what time it is. It's time to rank the game. The final ranking that I will be giving Subnautica is an 86. Now, of course, I'll explain my ranking, and I do rank these games based on a perspective of 100% completing them, not just a typical normal review of the game. The reason it gets an 86 is because even though I probably would complete it again, I don't necessarily see a reason to. I feel as though at this point I've done everything that there is to do in Subnautica, which obviously is part of 100% completing a game, but there isn't a lot of replayability for me. I've seen everything, I've done everything. The achievements aren't very creative either necessarily, and I know that this game wasn't necessarily tailor-made to be completed, but I would like a little more creativity from the achievements, a little more spice. And I wouldn't necessarily dock the game for that reason, but in a sense of where a game like Hades will get more points for having variation in achievement, it just doesn't add any points to Subnautica's score for having very basic, generally story-driven achievements. And with all that said, I did still really like the game, so I really have nothing against it. I don't think I'll be recompleting it. As usual, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. The next video, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga, but who knows, maybe I'll change my mind. I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like and subscribe. It would help me out in the algorithm if you leave a like and a comment or whatever you want to do. The video that's coming up on screen now is the next best video recommended for you. I would appreciate it if you check that out, as well as some of my other content. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.